All right, let me know if this sounds familiar. You load into a match. You are the first one found, and therefore you're the first chase. First chase doesn't go so well because you're a mediocre player at best, and it is a Friday night, so everyone and their mom is on, and they're playing like this is Hens' competitive league, whatever the tarnation, and they're acting like $50,000 is on the line. Get back on track, Q. So first chase doesn't go so well. You are the first hook. And after the first hook, you get healed, you try to do a gen, and then you are found again. So now you are on second hook, and then you are unhooked, healed, try to do another gen, and then you are dead. And your team is left to do 1 or 2 gens as a 3-man. Coincidentally, let me know if this also sounds familiar. You load up as killer. First chase goes kind of decent, a little longer than you would have liked. Second chase is okay. Third chase is decent, but gens are starting to pop. You were at 5 at your first chase, and now you're at 3 at your third chase. You feel like you're going to lose this game, so you're gonna have to either start tunneling people or slugging or just getting good, but we both know that's not going to happen right now. You're in Badham after all. And then that third gen, right, turns into 1 gen, and that one gen then becomes a 4-man escape because you weren't trying enough, or at least that's what it feels like. So now let me ask you a different question. What if I told you that was all designed on purpose? That wasn't a question. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Q, or Quetz for long, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I have noticed upon my return in Dead by Daylight after I took kind of a decent break, kind of a hiatus, right? And that is, I feel like this game is gambling. Just straight up, I feel like this game is designed to make you keep re-queuing. I believe the term in the gaming community is like hate queuing, right? And I noticed that, well, first of all, talking about the MMR for a second. The MMR is terrible. Everyone knows that. You know, you have people who have barely 20 hours in this game getting, you know, paired up with people that have 4,000, 5,000, 8,000 hours, right? So we all kind of know the writing on the wall there. That's pretty obvious. But I was really thinking about this, and there is just so little control and randomization that it truly does feel like every match you're loading into is like a slot machine, right? So if you're talking about Survivor, you don't choose who your teammates are, obviously, unless you queue up with your friends. You don't know their well, as of recently, you don't know their perks. You actually do now. You can see their perks. Loading into the match, you don't know what the map is going to be. On top of that, you do not know the variant of said map. And then on top of that, even more, you do not know the type of tiles that will be on a map. You have your consistencies, right? For most outdoor maps, you have a main building and a killer shack. And then you have a couple of tiles that surround, you know, the map. You have an L wall, T wall. You have the traditional loop that has that pallet on the left or right side, and then a long window to vault to, so you can make like basically like a L around it, right? You might have some long walls. You might have just trash circle loops that are just, you know, 2 rocks put together, but you only get to do them like maybe once at that. And then you have, you know, the loops that are 2 pallets connected to each other, so when they're dropped, it's like 1 long loop, right? But every version of a map has different palette randomization or generation, I should say, right? So you could be on Badham, you can be on Coldwind Farm, right? And you can be on the same variant of the map, but well, actually for Badham, I believe they got rid of the variant, so now it's just 1. And you can just have the same map 2 games in a row, completely different tiles. One version of Coldwind, there's like 4 loops connected to the shack, and the next version, it's complete dead zone, and the only viable option you have if you want to like do a chase is have shack, right? It just runs to the corner where shack is, and that's it. And then everything else is like a complete dead zone. And that plays such a huge factor because that determines your survivability not only as yourself as a player but then as a team, right? If your team has limited resources, chances are you are going to go down, I would say 90% of the time, where you're at least 3 of you guys are going to die. That's just kind of what it is if you have such limited resources, because there is nothing for you guys to defend yourselves with. It does, and I even mean that, like, as far as, like, I don't even think the killer matters that much, and that's another thing that you don't control. You don't control who the killer is. You don't even know who the killer is until you load up into the match, right? And then you also do not know the skill level of said killer. You can have someone who's playing Trapper, and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. Turns out this Trapper has a build meant specifically to bring you into the basement, trap up the basement, and that's it. You're done. GG's, go next, right? On the flip side, you can have a nurse who just started picking up nurse, so it's a baby nurse, and you can loop her for a little bit, and you can, do some mind games and do some fake-a-roos, right? And you can have an overall decent time and probably escape. So you can't control the map. You can't control the version of the map that has, specific tiles that maybe one day you're like, oh yeah, I know, if I go to Shack, there's gonna be a loop around there, or by the main building, there's usually this pallet or this window. Nope, it could totally change. You don't know the killer. And you don't know the killer's build. You don't know your teammates' build until you load into actually in the lobby and then when you load into the match. So you can kind of play around that, right? So that's pretty good. But then again, you don't know the skill level of said killer and teammates. And then on top of that, there is at the end game the hatch mechanic, which is totally random. And that just adds more into the factor. And I believe the devs said this, right? The devs have said before, like, they want to have that feeling of, like, the underdog winning, of, like, this random, exciting, fun factor. And that's kind of, like, the mentality and the basis of the hatch mechanic, of, like, the hatch kind of just spawns wherever. You can make predictions. Usually what I do is I go by Shack first to see if it spawns there. That's kind of like my go-to before I, check around the map. And then, of course, you have offerings that change this, right? So you have some offerings, though they changed the map offerings, where it's now just a chance you might get that map that you burned. May not still. I've seen time and time again teammates burn, like, a Cold Wind Farm offering, or, like, a Yamaako. Oh my gosh, I can't pronounce that. Yamaako offering. And we're ending up in Midwich, right? So it's still random in that sort of sense. The only one that's consistent is the hatch offering, where it can spawn either by the main building or the Shack. And then also with basement offerings, it can spawn either in the main building or the Shack as well, right? But there is just so many factors that this game has that can feel random, that then in turn makes you feel so good when you actually do have that match. So, like, ask yourself this question: how many consistent good games have you had in a row while playing Dead by Daylight? Like, while you're playing, like, for a night, right? Like, maybe in the span of, like, an hour or two. How many of those are, like, actual good games where it's very neck and neck? Maybe one survivor is, completely out of the game, but all the gens are done, and so, like, it's a dash to the gate, and then the killer is trying to juggle people getting on and off the gate, and someone else is getting hooked, and now you have to do an end game save and stuff. Like, really, like, fun and invigorating kind of gameplay, right? And you're having some good chases, you're having some good loops, and it's just overall both sides are having a great time. How many games would you say you have experienced in a session of Dead by Daylight? Or more commonly also, how many times have you loaded up into a match, you guys lose a teammate at 4 gens, maybe even 5, right? Maybe it's Dead Dog, it's a small map, and the killer is just, like, hooking one person once, hooked another person, and then went back to the original first person, get them second stage, and then out, right? Or you get a teammate that automatically disconnects, you get a teammate tunneled out, you get just so many different other factors, or, like, everyone's slugged on the ground. Again, like I said, how many games do you have of that, and then you just quickly forget about it because you have the abandonment feature? And so you just dip out of there and just queue up for the next one. And that's what I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, for the abandonment feature, I actually am really grateful that It's there, it's implemented, because I do not I do not miss the days of being slugged underground for 4 minutes. That was just terrible. I hated that. Now the fact that you can just like queue up into the next match when it's clearly the other side has lost, I'm grateful for that feature, but it adds into the philosophy of just getting you to that next game a little bit faster, right? And it's all by design. I truly do believe this, and I don't mean this in a tinfoil conspiracy hat kind of way. I like truly believe that there are changes like this. The game is built like this, so it's pulling that slot machine lever, and it's like, oh boy, we're on Ormond, and it's Blight. Who knows? Ormond's a big map, so maybe. Or like, oh boy, it's Midwich, and it's Nurse, going through the floors. Might not be a good match. Or you get Wraith, or somebody else in a different map, and it's that pulling that lever of just like, all these factors that you don't have in control, or that you don't even know about, and they want you to keep going. And if it's getting too bad, they want you to go to the next game very quickly and very easily. They just want you to keep queuing up, keep going. And it gets to a point of just like, when does that replace the consistency of fun? And granted, I've been playing online multiplayer games for a while. Sometimes you just have like bad nights. I totally understand that. When I was playing COD, but in the Black Ops 2 days, Black Ops 1 days, multiplayer, like that, those were just, I definitely had terrible times. And then other times they were really, really fun. So I understand this is not like a unique situation to Dead by Daylight, but for some reason I feel it the most in Dead by Daylight. And it is probably because of all the factors I've just listed, of so much that is not in your control and so little information that you do have. I mean, you don't even have voice chat, right? This is like one of the few, at least I know, and granted, I don't play a lot of games as of, lately. But I feel like this game, not even having voice chat too, and granted, I don't want voice chat to be in the game, but voice chat of just not being able to communicate with anybody too just makes it that much harder, right? And coordinate. And when you're playing solo, it just hurts, and it's like a rough experience of just like, you don't know what's going on unless maybe you have Kindred or Bond or some of these other perks that can help you, like give you information, right? And that kind of just leaves it up to chance of just like what your experience is going to be like. If you bring the wrong perks, you probably aren't going to have a great time, depending on the situation. Like, what if you have twins? You don't have like a slug ready build, right? You're going against twins or Oni, and you don't have Unbreakable, you don't have Conviction, you don't have We're Gonna Live Forever. That might be kind of rough. And then it got you feeling like, oh, okay, fine, this next build is somewhere in your subconscious, and this next game I'm gonna swap, I don't know, Prove Thyself for Unbreakable. And then in this next match, you have a Wraith that's like hit and run, and then just gets people out like boom, 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 real quick. And you're like, there was no slugging whatsoever. And it's like, okay, let me swap out Unbreakable for, something else now. And it's so interesting how like this game messes with your psychology. I genuinely find it fascinating, truly, because I do find myself most nights of just like, maybe I have one or two solid, like truly fun, solid games, and the rest are just miserable. We're getting absolutely just destroyed at 5 gens. If I'm playing Killer, I'm like having the worst time because I'm losing all the gens because I'm trash as Killer, and I can't, I haven't developed a great game sense in getting my chases down to a certain time, or I'm not utilizing my perks the best to their ability and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I wanted this to be like my first video back in a while, just to explain how I feel about the game, 2 years later, and just wondering if anyone else feel this way. If anyone else has this realization that DBD is basically just gambling. You're gambling your night away of just like, am I gonna have a fun time tonight? Am I gonna have a great afternoon, after class or after work, after 5 o'clock, just like, I'm gonna have an hour, let's see if it's gonna be a good one. I don't know, let me know in the comments down below, guys. I'd love to hear what your guys' experience are. I appreciate your guys' time, and hopefully I see you in the next one. Take care.